Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. Today my guest is Goodman. He's the creator of How to Think and Change Your Attitudes, Change Your Thoughts. And it's some powerful, dynamic work that he's been doing. And he's here to share this with me and so much more. Thank you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm excellent. Yeah, life is good.
Life is good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go when you first developed this whole program and what success have you seen with it?
Well, the program is called Creating on Purpose, and I've taught this workshop around the world with my partner, Anadea Judith. She's my teaching partner. She's the author of 10 books on the chakras, and we created this work together. Most people think of the chakras as something that you go up, you elevate, you open the chakras and you become spiritual. And what we found is that in the process of manifestation, of creating the world that you want, creating what you want in your life, there's actually a downward flow down from the top chakra down through the body into the ground. So this is taking an idea and turning it into reality. So, and in fact, the ancient Hindu texts that talk about the chakras talk about two flows, one upward, which they call mukti, and one downward called bhukti. And the upward flow is the flow of liberation. So when you want to liberate yourself, you open your chakras and become more and more spacious until you're at one with the universe. And when you want to manifest something in the world, you move the energy downward through the chakras so that you actually bring something into existence.
So are you bringing energy into your body from without?
Well, energy is constantly moving through us, right? So we take food in and we let food go, and we turn food into energy in our body. And so there's the physical energies, there's the psychic energies, intellectual energies, emotional energies. So we're part of a very big flow of energies. The question is, how are you directing them? And can you direct them where you want? Can you direct them intentionally?
And how about the cosmic energy that you're pulling into your body?
Absolutely. We are connected to everything. We are made of star stuff, so we're connected to everything. We're part of everything. And I think one of the problems in the world is that people feel separate. They feel separate from themselves often. They feel separate from each other. They feel separate from their families or communities. And so we have a bunch of individuals running around separated when in fact we're all connected.
So we're like one big family, a global family of energy.
We are, and we're exchanging energies with the plant world, with oxygen and carbon dioxide. We're exchanging energies with the earth. When you go outside and you barefoot and you ground into the earth energies, you're actually grounding your electromagnetic energies. There's light and there's thought and there's feelings, and we're a bundle of energies.
So it sounds like it would be a much more to one's advantage to be aware that we are connected to each other and to be aware of their energy. A lot of people are not. There seems to be a disconnect to their own energy.
Sure, we've kind of been narrowed in our world, in our education, so that if a child says, "Mommy, I see colors around that person," the mother may say, "There's no colors around people," so that the child says, "Oh, I guess I shouldn't see that." So children are kind of educated to not perceive what they naturally perceive. They see and feel energies all the time. And it's not just a visual sense. We also feel energies. When someone powerful comes in the room, you can feel it, right? When someone is depressed, you can feel it. So we often feel energies. And so the more we can tune into our own energies and other people's energies, the more opportunities we have, the more options we have.
Well, your book was a beautiful, powerful read, Creating on Purpose. And it's basically a whole methodology to help people to change that internal dialogue that they've been having with themselves, to reset the tapes and to delete the tapes that are not working anymore.
Absolutely. That's a very big part of the program. We basically have a workbook. It's something that you can start with and go from the beginning to end. If you want to create a business, create a relationship, create world peace, create better family relationships, you can use the book as a guidebook, and it takes you step by step through all of the pathway, the entire pathway of manifestation from idea. So I'll just briefly go over it. So in the seventh chakra, the top chakra, we're connected to spirit. We're connected to ideas and concepts. So you get a new idea. Gee, I want to build a new house. And so that's an idea that may come from you, from inside. It may come from the outside, but somehow we come up with ideas. And then we bring it down into the visual center, what's called the sixth chakra. And in that, we visualize what that will look like. So if I have the idea of building a house, I have to begin visualizing it. I have to see it. How many stories is it going to be? What's it going to be made of? Where is it going to be placed in the landscape? And then from the visual sense, you move down into the throat center, which is communication. So in this case, if you're an architect, I have to communicate with you about what that house will look like. And I'll be listening, and you'll be asking me questions, and I'll be telling you what my vision is so that you can bring it down onto paper and pen. And then we move from communication, and you have to communicate with all the people involved in your project, down into the heart center. And the heart center is our relationships. So you have to be in relationship with people, and you have to be in relationship with the city council and with the architect and with the contractor. And then in the third chakra, in the power center, which is down here, that's when you start moving the world. That's when you start bringing materials together that you can actually work with, the wood and the bricks and the rocks and the glass. And then in the second chakra, which is our sexual center, our passion center, that's what we need when things get tough, because no matter what your project is, you come up against barriers and problems. And so passion is what brings us further into confrontation with those problems, so you can learn and grow and bring it all the way down. And then the first chakra is the security and material center, and that's where we actually take pieces of wood and put them together, saw them off, fit them together, and it's very specific. So we go from the very general, I want to build a house, to the very specific, which is here's how the pieces of wood go together to build it.
Well, Lion, let's go to the very beginning. When you were thinking of developing this whole concept of changing the internal dialogue that one was having with themselves to make it much more of a positive and more effective life, instead of being ruled by the old, outdated thinking and behavior.
Sure. I've been studying consciousness since I was a teenager. And so I've constantly been looking at how does consciousness work? What's it made of? How does the brain work? How does brain and consciousness interact? And so I've been a seeker and an explorer of many different paths, constantly looking for what's the most practical way to make changes. And with 40 years of exploration, what I came down to is that the biggest leverage on our consciousness is beliefs. Beliefs are at the core of how we experience reality. So we don't experience reality directly. I don't see you directly. I see you through a filter, like a colored lens in front of my eyes. And so depending on what my opinion of you is, or what my label of you is, or my judgment, I will be seeing you through that filter, through that lens. And we do that with the whole world. So if I can change the filters out, if I can take my sunglasses off, suddenly you look differently. Suddenly there's more opportunities. And every filter that we have, every belief we have, either limits our possibilities or opens possibilities. So my work in beliefs is a way of looking, examining what are the filters I'm seeing the world through, and then removing them one by one so that the lens clears, and now I can actually see who you are, I can see who I am, I can see what the world is, rather than seeing limitations everywhere.
So the beliefs are hand in hand with the attitudes, and
Yes.
when your beliefs are as such, or in one way, then your attitude will be accordingly so. So
Right.
when you change your beliefs, your attitude will change.
Sure, you can try this right now. So imagine for a moment that you have the belief life is hard. So if you believe life is hard and you're looking out through that filter called life is hard, how does life look to you? It looks hard, right? If you took that filter off and you changed it to life is joy, you would then start looking around and seeing joy. Now, both the hardness of life and joy of life have been there the whole time. The question is, what were you seeing? How were you seeing it? And so when you change the belief, you change your attitude, you change your point of view, your perspective, you change your feelings, because every belief produces certain feelings. If you're looking out through life is hard, life is kind of like this, and you feel down and you feel struggling and enduring. Life is joy, you feel joyful. So beliefs create feelings, beliefs create attitudes, they create points of view, and also they function as labels and filters on what we see the world as.
So share with me, if you would, the whole methodology. Is there a dialogue, a script that one would read? And
yes, so the methodology for belief change is called the belief closet process. And I call it that because we use the analogy of a clothes closet in order to talk directly to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind doesn't use words as much as it uses pictures and feelings and experiences. So in order to communicate it, we have to draw it out. We have to invite it out to play. And so it's a guided visualization in which I take you into a special place called your belief closet, where beliefs appear as outfits of clothing. And being a woman, women know this more than men, that each different clothing outfit you wear makes you feel differently. An evening gown makes you feel differently than a pajamas, for example. So it's a very good metaphor for the subconscious mind, because the subconscious goes, oh, you want me to represent this belief as an outfit? Okay, let me show you something. And so it will bring up pictures. So every belief is represented by a picture. And then in the process, we try on a belief. We feel what it feels like, because beliefs create feelings. We see what it looks like. The subconscious paints a picture of it in this visualization. And then we use our conscious minds to decide, is this a belief I want to keep, or is it one I want to let go of? And in the same way, if you were in your closet trying on clothes that you've had around for 20 or 30 years, you'd say, this just doesn't fit me anymore. This is not something I want taking up space in my closet. So you'd put it in a bag for goodwill, or give it away, or burn it, right? So we do the same thing with beliefs. We create this environment in the mind in which you can go try on a belief, see if it still fits you. If it doesn't, you discard it, you get rid of it, and then you create a new belief, a new outfit that really serves your life. So it's sort of like a garden. When you're going to build a garden, you need to clear the rocks and the weeds out, and then you amend the soil, and then you plant the new seeds. And those seeds can grow in a fresh garden. If you plant it amongst the weeds and rocks, it's not going to be a very good garden. So what we do in the belief closet process is we go and we clear out all the old beliefs that are negative, that are limiting. And then when you plant new belief seeds, they grow naturally and they grow well. So that's how we change lives.
There's many different levels of the consciousness, and there's the alpha level and the sleep level, and there's different areas, like such as the ego. So when you're in that areas, you're going to have much more resistance for changing. So
yes, so resistance is something that's very important to understand, because no matter what you decide to create in your life, if you want to get a new relationship, or you want to change your relationship, or you want to create a new business, what happens is that whenever you create something new, the old beliefs get stimulated and they come up and they reassert themselves. And this is how it works. Let's say you decide to go on a diet and you say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And immediately what happens is old voices, old beliefs pop up, and they say, oh, you never stick with a diet. Oh, come on, it's hard. Christmas is coming and it's going to be really tough to diet during Christmas. What about that cake in the refrigerator? That would be really tasty right now. And so these old beliefs come up and pop up as soon as you make a commitment. And this is something that all children should be taught, because this happens to everyone. And if you learn that that's just an automatic process, then each time an old belief pops up, you can take it into the belief closet and discard it. And then it's not bothering you anymore. So once you discard something, it's gone completely and it doesn't come back. So then you can come back to your commitment and you can move forward. So resistance, barriers, blocks, these are natural things. And the only difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people know how to handle the blocks and barriers and resistance that come up. automatically and naturally. So I want to teach this to everybody so they understand that they have power over these things that come up and get in their way.
And how do these successful people handle these blocks? What do they do with them?
Well, everyone has different techniques. For example, a lot of people just power through. For example, if you talk to actors or actresses, when they go on stage, they have butterflies, just like everyone else. Except they have learned that, okay, I have butterflies, but I'm going to walk out on stage and perform just the way I love doing. And they don't let the butterflies stop them. Most people don't know that. And so the butterflies come up and they go, oh, I could never be on stage. So that's just one example of a way people get through the blocks and barriers and resistance that comes up. People who get stopped in the middle of their manifestation process, they start creating something, like they're going to go out and get a new job, and they get a couple of no's or a couple of bad experiences, and they stop and they go home and they watch TV. So they kind of fold in on themselves instead of saying, all right, how do I handle this feeling of rejection? So someone who's conscious, who learns this technique, can go, oh, I see. There's an old belief there called I'm no good. And so if I can clear that belief out of my consciousness, then I can come back and say, I know I'm good. That person just didn't need me at the moment. So that's an example of how to use this technique.
So there's not a one size for all. It probably, many people use the techniques and they're going to have some success and others have quicker success. Some people it's going to take a little bit longer. What have you seen from your experience?
Well, this technique, although it started as a manifestation technique, it turns out to be a healing technique. That all of us have these old programs that we got when we were children. Our mother said you'll never amount to anything. Our father said you're a bum. Stop that. Don't do that. You can't do that. And all of those programs, they're like having a computer that's old with an old operating system. If I gave you a computer that was 10 years old and it had an operating system that was 10 years old and said, here, you can have it for free, you'd say, no, thanks. That's not going to run any of the modern software. It won't do me any good. Well, we have a human operating system, and that's our beliefs. And so we have to go and we have to upgrade that old operating system because the old beliefs are still running us. Let's say you want to be in a new relationship and you meet somebody and they respond like your mother or father and you react. You get angry and upset, and then you never want to see them again. Well, that wasn't necessarily them. They were just being themselves, but something in you came up and reacted. So when we teach people this, they can apply it to any area of their life. They can apply it to relationships. They can apply it to their physical body and heal their own body with it. They can apply it to work and career. They can apply it to finance and abundance. So this is a tool. It's like one of those multi-tools with a knife and a spoon and a fork and a screwdriver and something you don't know what it does. And so this tool can be used for any area of life, and people have used it to manifest new houses, new relationships. They've used it to clear the path so that they can finish their degrees or get a new career. I'll give you one great example. A friend of mine I taught this technique to, and he came to me about a month later and he said, well, I used your technique and I cleared 200 beliefs. And I went, wow, how do you feel? He said, I feel completely different. I don't even recognize myself. Everything that was standing in my way is gone, and now I can just get done what needs to be done. And that man, who was living pretty close to the poverty level when I taught him this technique, is now involved in multi-million-dollar deals. So he just cleared the things that were in the way inside of himself, and the world opened up to him.
Again, how long would it take on the average for one to clear the beliefs? I mean, do you go at them one time and then maybe you falter and they come back again, or do you have to do it several times, or is it just a one-time clearing?
Well, the technique that I developed it specifically because I saw lots of other techniques that were they sort of worked, but not always, and you had to keep using them over and over again, and I said, that's no good. I want a technique that you use once and you're done. So, but you use it for one belief at a time. And we have probably tens of thousands of beliefs inside of us from our very early childhood to all the beliefs we've come up with since then. So we're not trying to clear all the beliefs. We're just trying to clear the ones that are troubling you. So we do a diagnosis and we say, what are the beliefs that are in the way, that are in your way for you to accomplish what you want? And then we clear those. And there might be 5 or 10 or maybe 15 of them. Well, each one to clear only takes a few minutes, but you have to learn how to do it. So that takes a couple of hours. And so depending on how many beliefs you have, that's how long it takes. I've worked with some...
What do you have to learn to do?
Oh,
to clear?
Good. So you learn the process called the belief closet process, and you learn it by working with a practitioner who's studied with me and who's learned the technique. And so they take you through the process. And the first session's usually an hour and a half. The next sessions are usually an hour, and you can clear 2 or 3 beliefs in an hour. And because there's a diagnostic part as well as the actual process. And then you learn to do it on your own, and then it only takes a couple of minutes. So I'll give you another example. I went to a party one time, and I felt very strange. As soon as I walked in, I felt strange. People looked strange. I felt weird. I didn't know quite what was happening. So I sat down on a chair, I closed my eyes, and I said, what belief has gotten reactivated? And the belief was, I don't belong here. And I went, oh, I know that belief. Okay, so I cleared it, and I opened my eye, and then I put in the new belief, which is, I belong here. I opened my eyes, stood up, and suddenly everything looked different. People looked friendly. They were calling me over. They were coming up to me. I felt completely comfortable, and that only took a couple of minutes. So it can be done very quickly once you know what the belief is.
And those beliefs are staying. They take a firm hold, and they don't kind of waver weeks later, months later?
That's right. This technique is permanent. Once you delete a belief from the subconscious and you do it properly, it's gone forever. It doesn't come back. And usually we ask people, how do you feel now? They say, I feel great. And if you ask the question, do you remember your old belief? They go, what belief? So it's really gone out of consciousness. It doesn't
so you're
come back.
Actually accessing the subconscious.
Absolutely.
That's where the work is done.
That's exactly
not
right.
in the conscious part of the brain.
That's right, because that's where beliefs are stored in the subconscious mind.
So what is the biggest success story that you've ever seen with a client?
Wow, there have been so many. One person came to our workshop and said, I want to own a house, but I've never owned one before. I don't have any money, and my credit rating really stinks, and I can't get a loan. And after our workshop, she reported, I think it took 4 months. I think 4 months later, she wrote to us and she said, I just bought a house. So that's the kind of dramatic change that can happen. People have healed diseases in a matter of 6 months or a year. They've come out into new life. People have changed their careers, have changed their relationships. So you name it in the area, and these techniques have worked for people.
Sounds beautiful. Yeah, has there been studies on the scientific level or data to confirm this, what your work is all about?
I have not done studies on this technique, although if there's any scientists out there that would like to study it, I'd love to work with them, because I have a scientific background myself. But the best book that gives scientific evidence for this is Bruce Lipton's book called The Biology of Beliefs. And he shows that our beliefs actually can change our biology, that right down to the physical level, we shift our physiology with beliefs. And so there's a lot of scientific evidence that that's true, and this technique just happens to be a very effective way to do that.
And so Bruce Lipton's book, The
Biology of Beliefs.
Essentially, what is it talking about?
Well, he's a cellular biologist, and he says that the old way of thinking about DNA is that DNA is fixed and that it produces certain proteins, and it's always going to do that, and that's what it does. And there's a new science called epigenetics, and epigenetics is the science of whether the DNA is actually creating or not. It's the way that DNA turns on and off to produce the proteins that it's designed to produce. And that seems to be the link with beliefs, with our attitude, as you said, or our beliefs. We can turn the DNA system on and off so that we're actually able to create new proteins or different proteins from one moment to the next. And proteins make up our hormones, and so it drives how we feel. It makes up our physical body and disease states. So all of the stories about people healing diseases and cancer suddenly disappearing is because the person's attitude changed toward their disease, toward what was happening. So it appears that we do have control directly over our biological functioning through beliefs and attitudes.
Well, this sounds very liberating and very much putting one in control of their life and more in co-creation with their self.
That's totally right, because your program is on conscious living, right? So to live more consciously, we take charge, we take responsibility for what's happening in our lives. We're no longer victims of circumstances or our parents or our biology. We can actually change and shift anything in our lives. So you can shift, if you shift your beliefs, you can shift your circumstances because you're seeing through a different lens. You're seeing the world differently. And that means opportunities appear that hadn't appeared before. So we're not even victims of our circumstances. We can change how we interact with the world. We can change our experience of the world by changing our beliefs.
It seems like it's a very obvious factor that if one changes their beliefs and the world changes. Why are more people doing it?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
If you could answer that question, I'll give you $1 million.
Really?
It seems so obvious to you and I, and
Yeah.
to people who are on this path. It's clear that we can shift our experience of reality. Most people have been trained to not think, to not explore, to not dive deeply into themselves. As long as they go to work and make money and come home and be with their family and do what they do and go back to work the next day, that seems to be enough for them. But then inside they're hurting, they're really suffering. And so at some point the suffering gets great enough that they say there's got to be something else. There's got to be a way out. And so they may see a therapist, or they may take a workshop, or they may read a book that stimulates them to open up this whole world of inner exploration and inner change.
So it's possible for anybody to come to this point where they want to change their world around and help themselves.
Absolutely, and it seems to be related to suffering. It's like, how much suffering can you put up with before something's got to change?
How long can you endure?
Exactly.
And some people endure for a great long time.
They were trained to endure.
Perhaps on their deathbed, they're still enduring.
Right.
It seems to be,
Right.
yeah, they're trained to accept and trained to compromise and trained to be run by their beliefs that no longer work.
Right. You think about executives who have a heart attack or get into a car accident, and really those physical manifestations are from the deep internal suffering, and then they suddenly wake up and they go, oh my God, something's got to change. So whatever it takes is my philosophy. You know, some people need a big 2x4 over the top of their head, and other people, you know, need something more subtle.
At what point in your life were you not knowing about this yourself, and what was your life like at that time opposed to now that you've created this system and you are obviously working it yourself?
Yes. Well,
was there a point in time when you did not know about this and you were heavy laden with outdated beliefs?
Well, I got an early start. Excuse me. So as a child, I was pretty miserable. I felt alone. I felt separated from other people. I didn't know who I was or how to be with other people. I didn't feel liked by anyone. And that started me on this path of exploration. And when I was in junior high school, I found a book called How to Make ESP Work for You. And I thought, there we go. Maybe I can grow my ESP, my extrasensory perception. And so I began experimenting with my girlfriend. We'd send telepathic messages to each other, and we'd think about how to open up our third eye. And that's what got me started on the path. I'm sorry. And so I was an early explorer, and by the time I got to college, I was really deeply in this exploration. I had found great teachers, read great books, and I was a full-blown consciousness explorer. And then I actually got my degree in consciousness studies, and that was back in 1975, which was pretty early in the consciousness movement. So it's been a long path ever since. And then I kept looking for what's the best way to change people, what's the best way to change myself, how can I improve myself more and more and more. And that's what drove me to find the techniques to change beliefs and to manifest.
So who have been some of your teachers or mentors that you've come across over the years that really have shaped your thinking and your research and your data?
Yeah, I've had great teachers. My first teacher was a man named T.D. Lingo. He had a school in the mountains of Colorado called the Adventure Trails Survival School and Brain Laboratory. And it was beautiful mountain property with no electricity and no running water, but log cabins and firewood stoves. And he taught a natural consciousness expansion course, which I took, and then I helped him teach. And so that was my first great teacher. In college, I had some wonderful teachers in psychology and physiology. When I began exploring other paths, Werner Erhard was a great teacher of mine, and he started EST and Landmark. And then a man named Harry Palmer, who created the Avatar course, has been a great teacher of mine, and I taught that course for a while. And then I said, okay, it's time for me to teach my own courses. But I could list 20 people that were wonderful teachers in my life. Everyone I honor and feel gratitude toward.
So the gentleman in Colorado, what was he actually doing in this log cabin experiential?
Well, Lingo had 3 degrees from the University of Chicago. He had been in World War II as a guy on the front of troops, and he had to open up places like Auschwitz. So he came back from the war and asked the question, why do we kill each other? Why do human beings kill each other? And he attended the University of Chicago and studied with some of the great minds of the time, Mortimer Adler and Robert Maynard Hutchins, Enrico Fermi. And he came out with the understanding that it was in our brains somewhere. And so when he started his own school, he taught brain science. How does the brain work? And what techniques can we learn from the brain, and how can we use the brain and change the brain so that our consciousness changes? So he taught self-therapy, how to do your own therapy, brain self-control, how to control the inner brain mechanisms. And he brought in meditation and psychodrama and a huge wide range of techniques. And he taught it to us as kids, really. We were in college, and then we took it and expanded it from there.
So it was a large host of a lot of experiential methods.
Yeah, he gave me a start in seeing how wide the world was and how many great teachers there are, how many great techniques there are, and really sort of set me on the path of exploring, especially through science, through the scientific method of inquiry, as well as the psychological and inner method of inquiry.
What do you think the future would be of this whole program?
Well, the future is a huge unknown, and it's both terrifying and exciting. When you look at the problems in the world, with the environmental problems, and the social problems, and the political problems, and economic problems, it's quite frightening to think that the whole world could just collapse. The whole civilization as we know it could collapse. So, to me, inner development is the key to survival. To no matter what happens in the outer world, if you have your own understanding of consciousness and yourself, you can handle anything. You can thrive in any environment. So if you look at the history of the consciousness movement, it has grown and grown and grown. And right now, through the internet, you can find out about thousands and thousands of techniques and processes. So I think there will be no end to that study, because there's really no end to us. We are infinite inside and we're infinite outside. So I think that we have thousands of years left for understanding ourselves and growing ourselves. And it's something that's really needed. So I teach teachers. I teach people who will take my techniques and use them in their practices, coaches, therapists, healers. I teach them this technique so that they can bring it out to their community. And for me, that's really important, is each one teach one. Everybody can become a teacher of these things.
Would it be fair to say that our mere survival is related on individual consciousness of people waking up and owning their own energy and being very familiar with their own energy?
I agree with that. I think it's two things. One is becoming aware of yourself. And the second is what's called sacred activism, which is that we have to take our consciousness and bring it out into the world, into the political realm, to bring people and get people into office who are conscious and awake, to change government so that it's more conscious and awake, to change institutions and organizations. I'm involved in businesses. I help businesses become more conscious and awake. So it's important that it gets spread throughout the whole of society, because there are so many societal problems and cultural problems that this increased awareness and increased consciousness can help.
So that's the work of John Mackey from Whole Foods, Conscious Capitalism?
Right.
So it's about being aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, while you're making money. And it's not about exploitation anymore and the old paradigms of being.
Exactly. And Stanford has a whole program on compassion in business. There are many, many organizations working toward this, but what's been proven true now financially is that an organization, a business that practices compassion, practices the triple bottom line, where they care about people and the planet as well as profit, that those businesses actually do better financially. Their people are happier, their people are more productive. So when you bring these techniques into the business world, you're not only are you doing good, but business is better too.
Well, what would be an example of that? Which business would be thriving in that area and is very successful?
Well, let's see. There's first of all, Whole Foods is sets out an example of taking good care of their people, taking good care of the environment. Now, there's controversy about them too, because they are still a big business, but that's an example of really treating people well. I recently heard the head of Ford Motor Company, the chairman of Ford Motor, Bill Ford, talk about bringing compassion into his company. So even old world companies, old industrial companies like Ford Motor Company, are bringing in this new consciousness of conscious, creative and compassionate business.
So there's a lot of success with it, and there is role models for it.
Yes.
It's others just to adapt it and look at it.
Yes, indeed. There are hundreds of companies that are moving toward this new way of doing business.
What final thoughts would you like to share that is very dear to your heart on this topic of consciousness?
Well, what's most dear to my heart is love and relationship. So we take these ideas into the realm of relationship, and we find that if you and I are in a relationship, and we are right now because we're talking, right? But if we're in an intimate relationship, we can apply these techniques to make the relationship better. And it's all about relationship, right? So whenever we're creating something, we're in relationship with dozens of people. You walk into a restaurant and you're in relationship with a waitress. If you treat that waitress unkindly, you're creating more suffering in the world. If you treat her kindly, you're creating more compassion in the world. So when we apply this to relationships, to our most intimate partners, to our families, our children, our parents, and then expand it out to our groups of friends, and then to the community as a whole, and then to the whole society, pretty soon the whole world is a place where you can practice conscious love, conscious compassion, and greater awareness. So for me, all creation is co-creation, and the whole world is a place to practice these techniques, to expand our awareness, and to treat each other more kindly.
Well, thank you. It's been a great pleasure to meet you, and very powerful work that you're doing.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. I'm so happy to meet you and to be on your program.
Thank you. And from the Art of Conscious Loving, please take care of yourself and take care of others. Thank you.